Every one of these moments exists because someone figured out how to take African music to the world. And for the last decade, every African artist who has gone global has followed the same invisible path, the same sequence of moves, the same strategic order of territories. UK first, then America. Build credibility in London before you chase New York. Get the British press before you go for Billboard. Use the UK as the bridge, not America as the first destination. But here's the question that nobody in the African music conversation has properly stopped to answer. Who drew that path in the first place? By the end of this documentary, we're going to prove with dates, with events, with a step-by-step timeline that Wizkid created the blueprint that every successful African global crossover has followed since 2012. Not partially, not approximately, exactly. And we're going to answer the question that his own fans have never fully confronted. Why is the man who built the road getting less credit than the people driving on it? Stay with us. There is one specific moment in this story, one song, one night, on one radio show, where Wizkid's UK strategy produced the exact chain of events that eventually put African music on the Billboard Hot 100. We're going to trace that chain, link by link, later in this video. And when you see the full sequence, you'll understand that what looked like luck was actually a plan that had been running for 3 years.
Fine girl, no pimple. See, I love your swag and I love your dimple. Simple.
To understand the blueprint, you have to see where it starts. It starts at home. In 2011, Wizkid releases his debut album Superstar under Empire Mates Entertainment. The single Holla at Your Boy establishes him immediately as a leading figure in Nigerian music. He doesn't start by trying to crack London or New York. He starts by becoming undeniable in Africa. This sounds obvious. It isn't. In 2011, the dominant conversation in African music was about America. The prize that every Nigerian artist was chasing was a US record deal, American radio play, a feature with an American rapper. America was the goal. Everything else was a stepping stone. Wizkid approaches it differently. He spends 2011 and 2012 building an African fan base so deep and so loyal that when he eventually moves toward international markets, he arrives with proof, not ambition, proof. An army of listeners on his own continent who had already validated him. By 2012, just 1 year after his debut, Wizkid had won MOBOs, received BET and MTV EMA nominations, and completed a tour of Africa. He hadn't released an international album. He hadn't signed with a Western label. He had simply become so big in Africa that the world had to start paying attention. And then he makes the move that changes everything. He doesn't go to America, he goes to London. 2012, Wizkid sets his sights on London. In 2012, Wizkid sells out the HMV Hammersmith Apollo in London, a venue with a capacity of just over 5,000. He is a Nigerian artist, 1 year into his career, performing to a sold-out London crowd. This is not a small venue night. The Hammersmith Apollo is one of London's most iconic music venues. Artists like Prince, David Bowie, and the Rolling Stones have played there. But it's not just the venue that matters, it's what happens around the performance. Wizkid goes on Tim Westwood TV, the BBC Radio 1 platform that has launched more hip-hop and urban music careers in the UK than almost any other. And in his Westwood freestyle, he does something that most people don't register as strategic at the time. He shouts out, Skepta.
Code for your speakers freezing. Da 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 da. Let a booty shake, let it tease me. Big shout out to Skepta, Doneo. Big shout out to Sneak Boo. Big shout out to all the big UK artists out here doing their thing, man.
In 2012, Skepta is not yet the global grime superstar he becomes after 2016. He is a respected figure in London's urban music scene, but he is not internationally famous. Wizkid shouting him out on a Westwood freestyle is not a fan paying tribute. It is a young Nigerian artist deliberately signaling to London's most credible community that he belongs in their world. It is a relationship being built publicly on camera 3 years before it produces one of the most important songs in Afrobeats history. 2014, Wizkid is invited as a special guest on Tiny Tempa's tour of the UK. He performs at BBC One Extra's Live Lounge in Lagos. He records Ojuelegba, a deeply personal song about the Lagos neighborhood he grew up navigating, a song sung almost entirely in Yoruba, rooted in a specific Lagos experience that every Nigerian who has ever struggled to build something from nothing immediately recognizes as their own. A song in Yoruba on BBC One Extra about a Lagos junction that every Nigerian who ever hustled toward a dream with nothing but belief and bus fare immediately recognized as their own story. This is not an artist hiding his identity to appeal to British audiences. This is an artist being so specifically, unapologetically African that British audiences have no choice but to come to him.
I'm trying to be the best Wizkid that I can, so every day I'm working on to be a better person. So it's like I don't feel like I don't feel like, oh, I'm in a new territory, so I have to do this to be loved or for people to like my sound, or I have to do this for people to fuck with me. Like, nah, I'm just really making my music and still catching my real vibes, not trying to dilute the sound, collaborate when I can.
July 11th, 2015, Drake premieres the debut episode of his OVO Sound radio show on Beats One, Apple Music's new global radio platform, and in that debut episode, Drake plays a remix of a song. The song is Ojuelegba. The Ojuelegba remix features Drake and Skepta, two of the biggest names in global hip-hop and grime respectively, alongside Wizkid. Drake brought the American audience. Skepta brought the UK credibility that Wizkid had been building since the 2012 Westwood freestyle, both of them on the same track, because Wizkid had spent 3 years making himself impossible to ignore in both cities. The song lands on Fider magazine's list of the 107 best songs of 2015 at number 12, between Drake's Hotline Bling and Kendrick Lamar's All Right.
Skepta's my brother. Skepta has been showing me love from before I even became like Wizkid. He made that record, the Ojuelegba remix, happen. Like, he played that to Drake and I was like, yo bro, you need to get on this. This is like the hardest record right now. And he did. So, Skepta is like family, Tiny.
Read that again. A Yoruba language song about a Lagos junction where hustlers, traders and dreamers collide daily. Ranked between Hotline Bling and All Right on a list of the best songs of 2015 by an American music magazine. This is not luck. This is the 3-year UK strategy producing its first American dividend. Here is the chain, traced backwards. Wizkid shouts out Skepta in 2012 on Westwood TV, planting a relationship. Skepta's London credibility makes Wizkid a respected figure in the UK grime and urban scene. That credibility reaches Drake, who is building his own relationship with UK grime. Drake invites Wizkid onto OVO radio. The Ojuelegba remix is the result, and from that remix, Wizkid and Drake build the relationship that produces One Dance in 2016, the record that puts an African artist at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for the first time. After One Dance, the obvious move for every other artist would have been to sprint, release more music, capitalize on the moment, stay visible. Wizkid's 2016 One Dance collaboration with Drake hits number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the United States and number 1 in 14 other countries simultaneously, making him the first Nigerian artist to top the US charts. Instead of immediately releasing an album to capitalize on the global momentum, Wizkid takes his time. He releases Sounds from the Other Side in 2017 and then spends years carefully constructing what becomes Made in Lagos. This is not an accident. This is a specific philosophy about how to build a lasting career rather than a one-hit crossover. If the world can pay attention to one artist from Africa, why can't they pay attention to all? Wizkid interview with Rolling Stone 2021. He is not thinking about his next single, he is thinking about an entire continent's music being taken seriously, and the way he does that is by making every release count more than the last one. We told you at the start there was one moment where a single song produced the chain of events that eventually put African music on the Billboard Hot 100. Now you can see the full chain. Wizkid shouts out Skepta in 2012. That relationship delivers the Ojuelegba remix in 2015. The Ojuelegba remix brings Drake. Drake brings One Dance. One Dance gives Wizkid the global platform to build Made in Lagos without pressure. Made in Lagos gives the world Essence featuring Tems. Essence becomes the first Nigerian song to hit the Billboard Top 10. Tems, discovered by the platform Wizkid built, wins a Grammy. The chain starts in 2012 with a Westwood freestyle and ends a decade later with an African woman holding a Grammy. One shout out, one decade, one unbroken chain. October 30th, 2020, Made in Lagos drops. Made in Lagos debuts at number 28 on the Billboard 200, the highest chart position for a Nigerian album at the time. It becomes the longest charting Nigerian album in the century on that chart, spending over 86 weeks. Gold certified in the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Belgium, Switzerland, Netherlands, and New Zealand. 5 times platinum in Nigeria. Every single song on the album sells over 100,000 units in the US. And then came the song that proved everything, Essence, featuring Tems peaks at number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming the first ever Nigerian song to reach the top 10 on the most prestigious singles chart in the world. It spends 35 weeks on the chart. It earns a Grammy nomination for Best Global Music Performance. It is named by Grammy.com as the centerpiece of Wizkid's entire career, and by Billboard as a watershed moment for Afrobeats globally. But look at who is on that record. Tems. Tems in 2020 is a rising Nigerian artist, brilliant, distinctive, with a voice unlike anything the Nigerian music scene has heard in years. But she is not yet the Grammy-winning global star she becomes after Essence. Wizkid puts Tems on his biggest album at a moment when she is not yet globally famous, the same way he had once used his own platform to lift Skepta into a wider conversation, the same way he had used Ojuelegba to introduce Yoruba to British music magazines. He is now using Made in Lagos to give Tems the global stage she needs. The strategy isn't just about Wizkid's own career, it has always been about building a world where African artists belong. In 2021, Wizkid wins a Grammy Award for Best Music Video for his contribution to Beyoncé's Brown Skin Girl alongside Beyoncé and Blue Ivy Carter.
And the Grammy goes to Beyoncé, Blue Ivy, and Wizkid.
We opened this video with a question: who drew the path that every African global artist has followed since 2012? Now you have the evidence. Wizkid's blueprint has 4 steps. Build Africa first. Use London as the bridge. Let UK credibility convert to American access. Disappear at the peak and return with something undeniable. Burna Boy's pathway to Madison Square Garden follows this sequence. Tems' Grammy run follows this sequence. Rema's Calm Down global moment follows this sequence. Every African artist who has achieved sustained global success in the Afrobeats era has either consciously followed this blueprint or accidentally followed it, because it is the only path that actually works. The Grammy.com profile of Made in Lagos states directly that the album helped hasten the rise of Afrobeats worldwide and that its ripple effect was keenly felt across the entire genre. The Billboard coverage of Essence called Wizkid the first African artist to truly make a major pop breakthrough in the United States. The Native magazine credited his 2012 Hammersmith Apollo performance with cementing Afropop in UK urban spaces and helping birth Afroswing as a genre. The architect of African music's global moment has his name on every building, and somehow, in the conversation about who built this era, his name is mentioned less often than the people who moved in after the construction was done. Wizkid didn't just make music that the world loved, he built the road that made it possible for African music to reach the world at all. Who do you think gets enough credit for building the global Afrobeats era and who doesn't? Drop your take in the comments. We are reading every single one, and if you think another African artist deserves the same kind of deep dive analysis, tell us who. Fame Africa goes where the story is. Subscribe to Fame Africa. Every week we make the argument that African music deserves better than a highlights reel.